How you doing? My name's Andres Nello. I'm going to talk to you guys about internet addiction. That was my case that was presented in class. In slide number 2, there's a quick video that I would put the link to in the discussion post so you guys can see the video. It basically shows some statistics and symptoms that an internet addiction disorder has, and also shows some good information just for yourself, just to have. Just so you can look back into. So I will post that in the discussion under the link for my video. In the next slide, I'm going to provide an overview of Mark's case. I'm going to read off Mark's case so you guys have a little overview of it. So Mark is in 11th grade. He anxiously awaits the end of the school day so that he can go home and start playing video games and visiting social media sites such as Facebook. Both of his parents work. So Mark is home by himself for about 2 hours in the afternoon until one of them arrives home. He recently had his phone taken away by his parents as punishment for receiving a day of in-school suspension when he was caught on his phone in his math class talking with someone on the app Snapchat. Mark reports that he prefers to engage with his friends online as they are from all over and are cool. Additionally, he finds as if he has met more new people this way. Mark's parents are concerned about this because he's spending more time online, avoiding interactions with the family and failing in some of his classes due to not completing his homework. He recently began refusing to come out of his room to eat meals. His mother reports that he's tired, lethargic, and she has noted that he often speaks of his online friends as if they're friends he will see daily, like going riding a bike or something. His mother is concerned that this fake friends have replaced his socialization with others, including his cousin Josh, who was used to come by every day to play basketball or just hang out with Mark. In slide 4, we're going to talk about the diagnosis. I diagnosed Mark with internet addiction with a dual diagnosis of a social anxiety disorder. As we all know, internet addiction is not in the DSM-5, and it's to continue to further study. But Tao in 2010 proposed a criteria for internet addiction disorder, which the criteria proposes that you must have the preoccupation with the internet, withdrawal symptoms, tolerance, unsuccessful attempts to control internet use, continued excessive internet use despite the knowledge of negative psychosocial problems, loss of interest, previous hobbies, entertainment a result of, with the exception of internet use. Use of the internet to escape or relieve dysphoric mood, and deception of family members, therapists, and others. As we all know, this is just a proposed criteria that was studied by Tao in 2010. There's actually not the actual criteria, but me finding this information kind of gave me the background to diagnose Mark with internet addiction. I also diagnosed Mark with the secondary diagnosis of social anxiety. Social anxiety is it is on the DSM-5, and we found a lot of information about that. And we often see how people who have addictive personalities often have a dual diagnosis. So I also diagnosed Mark with social anxiety disorder, and this is a criteria for it. A persistent fear of one or more social or performance situations in which the person is exposed to unfamiliar people or possible scrutiny by others. The individual fears that he or she will act in a way that will be embarrassing and humiliating. Exposure to the other criteria is exposure to the fear situation almost invariably provokes anxiety, which can take form of situationally bound or situationally predisposed panic attack. The avoidance of anxious anticipation or distress in the fears of social performance situation interferes significantly with the person's normal routine, occupational functioning, such as school, or social activities or relationships, or there's a marked distress of having the phobia. The other criteria is the fear and anxiety or avoidance is persistent, typically lasting 6 or more months. And also the last one is the fear of avoidance is not due to a direct physiological effect of substance or general medical condition, not better accounted by another mental disorder. As you can see, Mark does fit in that area of the social anxiety disorder. With the information given, we can't really say that he fits with the time period duration of that time, which is typically lasting 6 or more months. But knowing what information that was given in our case study, I can diagnose Mark with social anxiety disorder. In slide 5, we're going to talk about the rationale why I diagnosed Mark with internet addiction and some of the rule outs. My rationale in Mark's case, we initially see how the internet is hindering Mark's life, daily activities, social interaction with his family, and friends and schoolwork. Mark is failing most of his classes and recently got suspended for using his phone and browsing the internet. Therefore, I thought that internet addiction would fit Mark for the diagnosis. That was my rationale towards it. See how the internet addiction is causing a lot of problems in his daily life, daily routines, and occupation as well, which means in school right now. And with social interactions, isolating himself to be by himself and lying to his family just to be in his room to just get away from the daily regular chores or daily regular life that he has brought home. The rules that I have with Mark's case, based on the information provided, I ruled out depression. Although I ruled it out, depression may still be present in his daily life. He could also have some depression due to genetic construct of Mark and his family, and that still could be to still happen in his life. Although with the information, like I said, we ruled out the depression. The DSM discusses how genetic and physiological factors are contributed to depression. When the information given concluded that Mark does not firmly meet the criteria necessary to be diagnosed for depressive or personality disorder. In slide number 6, I will talk about the two theoretical approaches. One of the two theoretical approaches that I chose was CBT and person-centered. First, CBT, as we all know, is a time-sensitive, structured, presented-oriented psychotherapy. It's directed towards solving current problems and teaching clients skills to modify dysfunctional thinking and behavior. The duration of CBT is approximately about 12 sessions, give or take. The benefits of CBT that it is time limited, it is solution focused, it is structured, and is directive. Some of the limitations of CBT is that it's very confrontational. Some clients also dislike the feeling that they're being talked out of their emotions, and sometimes it is too short of time frame. CBT is a really good approach that a lot of counselors use nowadays for like crisis interventions and even any addictive disorders, just because of how much CBT is studied. You can see how good CBT is towards addictive disorders. The other theoretical approach that I chose was person-centered. This approach to counseling is very good as well. It uses psychotherapy that places much of the responsibility for the treatment, the process on the client, and the therapist taking a non-directive role. So this means is that it basically depends on the client to see where the session is going to go or the treatment is going. The duration on this approach, it depends on the client basically. So we just let the client go and we kind of meet them what they are. Some of the benefits for person-centered is that it focuses on the client's inner and subjective experiences. It focuses on empathy and being present, so focusing on the here and now, and also respect the client values. That is really good because we let the client just not take over the counseling session, but we kind of meet them what they are and focus on the here and now, and follow that structure. So the structure is based on the client. So we just kind of following his structure. The limitation is that reflecting on feelings does not go far enough and is often misunderstood. Also, another one is people in crisis situations often need more directive interventions. So this means that people who are in crisis need some more direction and more directive interventions to solve the problem. And also another limitation is the clients often tend to expect more structured approach. This means As we all know, as counselors are the higher power in the counseling therapy session. So often clients tend to ask the questions like, "Why are you doing this? So you should do that." And it's often in this approach, we basically let the client like do the structure in the counseling session, and us as a counselor, we just follow them and help them out in that way. In slide number 7, I compare and contrast CBT and person-centered approach. Some of the similarities of CBT and person-centered is that they both share the elements of therapeutic relationship. The therapeutic relationship is really important in these two approaches because one, CBT is very confrontational, but you have to have a good relationship with the client, so you won't make the client angry about you because you're confronting them, or just kind of just throw them off and not want to come see you again because you're being confrontational. So the therapeutic relationship and the alliance is it has to be really good in both of these approaches to make these approaches work. The other similarities is that these approaches puts an emphasis on the client activity outside of the sessions. So it could be to exposure, it could be through sending homework. These two approaches do a good job of making the client work outside of the sessions and the treatment goals in their own self by taking the work up for at home or using the skills that they've learned in their daily life. One of the differences of CBT is that the counselor is the teacher and the client is the student. So you kind of basically being a teacher in a student role or a coaching role. So that means that you're kind of coaching the client to learn skills, to learn different things, the goals that you're setting for them and things like that. And for the person-centered is that the client determines where therapy is going. So that means that you are the counselor is basically not very directive. The counselor is just sitting back, kind of letting the client go where he wants to go in the sessions, and the counselor just facilitates that by giving her information, motivating the client, things like that, to go where they want to go and meet their needs. In slide 8, we're going to talk a little bit about the stage model, and often called the trans-theoretical model. This model provides strategies in the process of changes to guide an individual throughout the stages of action and maintenance. It's basically composed of the following construct. It's called the stages of change, the process of change, self-efficacy, decision of balance, and temptations. There are 5 models, stages that a client must go through to be able to find new behavior and have the ability to change. The first one is the pre-contemplation stage. This is a stage where the client has no intention to change the behavior. The client is basically unaware of the addiction and how the problem exists. So basically, if we look at Mark's case, Mark is simply is not clearly not aware of that he does have an internet addiction and is causing some harmful development in his life, in his daily life and routines. So we could say we could simply say that the role of the counselor in this stage is to make Mark view the situation and give psychoeducational methods to help Mark realize the extent of his behaviors. This is one of the biggest things in the role of the counselor here. So you have to be very motivational and show your client how to change his behaviors and show him why these behaviors are causing stress, are causing things that are not supposed to be in the daily life. This internet addiction is one of those things that Mark is isolating himself and making himself isolated and not wanting to have any interaction with anybody, and that could be very harmful to the development of himself. The next stage is the contemplation stage. This stage represents the awareness of an individual has towards knowing that a problem exists and that the individual is thinking about addressing the problem but is not yet ready to take action. As we can see, Mark clearly is literally not at this stage. His lack of awareness is shown through his action at school and at home of the problem. We can see how Mark is still using his phone, getting suspended from school. When he comes home, he isolates himself, doesn't want to talk. He's not even eating meals anymore, not wanting to come downstairs to eat. So those are one of the biggest things. Mark is not really ready in this stage, and he can still be in the contemplation stage. The next stage is the preparation stage. This stage is for the behavioral criteria wanting to take action. This stage is basically we cannot, in Mark's case, we cannot take away the full extent of the internet um, because the internet does play a big part of the recovery process as well. It is important to emphasize that the Mark desire to address the situations, and we can only motivate Mark to continue to change and not the addiction itself, but the behavior that contributes to the addiction. So in this stage, we kind of want to take away the behaviors that contribute to addiction, so anxiety. If there's anything that is bothering him at home that he doesn't want to confront or something like that, we can help him in this stage. The next stage is the action stage. In this stage, people often have made some adjustments in their lifestyles and have taken action. And according to Stevens' myth, typically in this action, you have to be in this action for at least 6 months. As you can see, Mark will have to change his behavior to attempt to even recover by changing his reaction to his environment. So Mark is not ready to take action at all. He's still in the pre-contemplation stage, like I said before. But this is just kind of the guidelines where he needs to be at to change his behavior and make better of his disorder. And the last one is the maintenance stage. The maintenance stage is the stage where individual tries to prevent relapse and capitalizing on the gains from the action stage. So whatever he did in the action stage, this is where he capitalizes on it and gains more insight and self-awareness and prevents to relapse. The guy who created this model was Proscott, DiClemente, and Norcross, and they said that the criteria to be in this stage, you have to be in this stage more than 6 months to be able to say that you are in the maintenance stage. So every stage that you develop in, it goes from pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, and maintenance. Each stage has a different kind of goal that you need to meet in order to go to the next stage. And we can see that obviously a client may go back and forth as well, but for this to work, you have to motivate the client to make that change. In slide 9, we're going to talk what the role of the counselor versus the client's role is in the counseling therapy. We're going to talk a little bit again about CBT and person-centered. First, we're going to talk about the counselor's role with CBT. Basically, with CBT, the counselor must be active, directive. The counselor has to be a consultant and a problem solver, so he has to help the counselor solve his problems by using CBT skills and behavioral analysis. Also, the counselor must employ strategies for behavior change, using skills such as problem solving, management, anger management, or management, etc. Also has to evaluate the behavior change strategies. The counselor also evaluate each strategy and how it's going for the client. And the client's role for CBT is that basically the client must trust the therapist, be open to change, and eliminate the maladaptive behaviors and learn more adaptive behaviors. It's just basically being open to change and being able to listen in what the counselor has to say and be able to listen and adapt some of the skills that the counselors has been putting into the treatment. And for person-centered, basically the role of the counselor is to be genuine, be congruent, and that means basically the corresponds to the counselor's thoughts and his behaviors. So be very genuine with his thoughts and behaviors. Also, the counselor must have unconditional positive regard, and that means the attitude remains unaltered regardless of the client's choices, and also have empathy. Empathy is it's to have interest and care for the client's perceptions and feelings. So that's one of the things that we as counselors have to put into play is that empathy piece with every client that we have. And the client role for person-centered, and you basically have to have a self-concept. Self-concept is the client should experience a rise in self-confidence as the counseling proceeds, which is basically self-awareness. You gotta have self-awareness about yourself and uh, be intuitive by yourself. And the other is locus of evaluation. As the counseling proceeds, the client focuses should move from an external to an internal locus of evaluation and not care what other people think. So it basically comes with inside of you, becoming internal and not caring about other people think, that you are aware of how you are and how you be. So you're not worried about anybody else except for yourself. And the last one is experiencing. As the counseling proceeds from a rigid to a more flexible mode of experiencing. So you kind of basically just experience anything that you can, going out there and experiencing, so you can bring it into the table also in the counseling session and be able to say that, yeah, I experienced that, this is not working for me, and be able to be more flexible of experiencing other things that could potentially help you in the long run. In slide 10, we're going to talk about the assessment tools and severity of the addiction. I use two assessment tools for Mark's case, which were the Maryland Addictions Questionnaire and the Life Stresses and Social Resources Inventory for Youth. The Maryland Addictions Questionnaire is easy to administer. It measures the severity of addiction, the motivation of a client to stop their addiction. It also recommends which treatment is most likely to work. It assesses the risk of relapse and considers whether the treatment will be complicated by cognitive difficulties, anxiety, or depression. The life stressors and social inventory for youth measures the ongoing life stressors and social resources and their changes and effects on an individual over time. So this is a really good assessment tool that measures the stress levels that are happening in a client's life, and the social resources that are implemented in the client's life, and their changes and how it affects their ongoing life and development. So for the severity of addiction, what I'll talk about next is severity of addiction is something that wasn't that I could not find in the DSM due to the fact that internet addiction is not in the DSM, but I kind of rooted myself with internet gaming disorder, and I found a lot of information on internet gaming disorder, so I kind of based internet addiction on that. So internet gaming disorder, sorry, is how you can tell the severity of that addiction is if you measure the degree of which the use of internet games interrupts normal activities like social interaction and education, and that determines the level of severity of an individual's case. So, according to the APA, people who have severe symptoms of internet gaming devote either to 10 hours or more per day, or at least 30 hours per week accessing that online gaming or internet platforms. In slide 11, we're going to talk about the recommendations for Mark and the considerations for levels of care. The ASAM level of care criteria is 4 levels of that criteria. The first level is level 1 is outpatient treatment. Level 2 is the intensive outpatient IOP and partial hospitalization program PHP. The level 3 is the medically moderate inpatient treatment such as residential treatment. And level 4 is medically managed inpatient treatment such as hospitalization. There's also 6-dimension criteria to assess the level of severity of the client disorder. So there's dimension 1 is the acute intoxication or withdrawal potential. Dimension 2, the biomedical condition or complication. Dimension 3 is the emotional and behavioral condition and complications. Dimension 4 is the treatment acceptance resistance. Dimension 5, the relapse potential. And dimension 6, the recovery environment. So when considering the levels of care in Mark's case, we got to consider Mark's place in school, Mark's interaction with family, and the effects of the internet addiction in all aspects of his life. Mark could be classified as a moderate since the addiction is causing disruption in his life or causing him to get suspended. So what I recommended for Mark is the outpatient program, which is level 1. Why? Because he still participates in school throughout his to a limited extent, and he does not have significant issues living at home with his family. The outpatient treatment basically involves individual therapy as well as family and group therapy, which shows that he's not alone in his growth. This can also help in his awareness and the motivation to change, because if he surrounds with that support network where he can affordably reassimilate himself with the world, a combination of CBT and motivational interviewing will work best for Mark's case. In slide 12, we're going to talk about the goals for treatment in Mark's case. The first goal that I came up with was to participate in cognitive behavioral family therapy to learn about anxiety and develop skills to manage it, and then use the skills to effectively in everyday life, while parents learn and implement constructive ways to respond to client fears and avoidance. I chose this goal because basically I wanted the whole family to learn and respond to the client, which is Mark. And I also wanted to, for Mark, to develop skills to manage the anxiety levels. So I wanted to kind of create a goal where the whole family is incorporated in that goal. So the interventions that I chose was to conduct cognitive behavioral family therapy, in which each family member are taught about cognitive behavioral, emotional components of anxiety, and learn and implement skills for coping with anxiety. So practice their new skills, and parents should learn parenting skills to facilitate the therapeutic process, the progress. So I think that intervention will help out the family as a whole, and as well as for Mark, because he'll feel like he needs to be in that type of place, and the parents understand him. In intervention, the second intervention is to kind of to teach the families members about anxiety management, problem solving, and communication skills to reduce the family conflict and assist the clients in progress through therapy. Like I said, I wanted the family to kind of motivate the client, which is Mark, to change their behaviors, but I wanted to make these interventions get formed with with having the family as a whole. So they could all learn at the same time, and not so the counselor or the family doesn't feel like the counselor is just focusing on the parent instead of um, the client, which is Mark. And I wanted everybody as a whole to come to counseling for that and have that first goal to learn and apply the skills that are learned in the therapy. And the second goal is for Mark, which is the achievement of controlled use of internet. And the interventions that I chose was the reminder cards. So Mark will write down about 5 major problems and 5 major benefits for cutting down the internet use, and then he'll place them down strategically in his house. So it'll be in his room, in his bathroom, in his pants, in his wallet, or anything along those lines that he thinks that is strategically formed that he will see every day, just to remind him to stop or control the internet use. And also just using a motivational approach to assist Mark in evaluating his motivation to change and make progress towards establishing the motivation to change. So I think motivation interviewing is one of the also a great approach to use, a technique to use to help Mark motivate himself to change, and for the counselor to use to motivate Mark to change those behaviors. In slide 13, we're going to talk about the ethical and cultural considerations. I used the NADAC ethical considerations, and one of the ones that I came up with was the non-discrimination, especially diversity among colleagues and clients regardless of age and gender, sexual orientation, ethnic, racial backgrounds. So we can't discriminate being as a counselor. Also, I came up with the client welfare. This principle states that the member will do no harm or exercise respect to sensitivity and insight. The primary relationship of the counselor is to be loyal to the welfare of the client and to work in counseling regardless of who actually pays his or her fees. The last and not least was the rights and duties. The counselors understand the personal and professional commitment and his network of rights and duties, and is willing to work the best of his or her ability to fulfill these duties. Well, this ethical consideration I came up with was the NADAC ethical standards. I mean, there's more of the standards that go along um, with NADAC, but these are the ones that just kind of spoke to me in the terms of my case study. Some of the cultural considerations to take into account as well is the age of the client, the gender, beliefs and values, race, ethnicity, and religion. The only ones that I could come up with right now, according to the case study, is the age. He is an 11th grader. I'm in almost my master's program there now, and the gender as well. We're both males, but could potentially have some problems as well. Um, we in the case study we didn't kind of see any beliefs or values that that Mark has. His race, we didn't see any of his race, of ethnicity, or religion. But then also this could come out in the counseling therapy and the counseling sessions. So this is one of the things that we have to keep in mind as counselors to be able to counsel other people.